Hello, everybody. Welcome to day 4 of our Getting Through the Holiday webinar series. My name is Yona Brindis, and I would like to say, give you a welcome, hello, and happy Hanukkah, happy Merry Christmas. Next to me is Roger. Roger,
Hi,
how are you
everyone.
holding up?
I'm doing well, actually. Thank you. Hope everybody's holidays are going good. Glad to be
Yeah,
here.
so those of you in Europe, those of you in Australia, and New Zealand, Japan, you have already celebrated or are in the middle of celebrating um, Christmas, that is. Um, I'm a European in America, so we are celebrating Christmas tonight as well. And Hanukkah is on the way, and there's many other celebrations going on, those socializations and so forth. So, yeah, Roger, I don't know how you feel, but to me it feels almost like a marathon.
Yes, it's been that way. Sort of busy.
Yeah, so I hope you guys all have a good time. Are there any belly full of truffle? Yeah, that sounds like me. We just finished our Christmas dinner, and I think I had too much dessert. So, Roger, you're gonna have to do most of the talking today
Oh,
in case I fall asleep. So you guys are most of you know us already. So my name is Yona Brindis and Roger Schwartz, and the objective of this webinar meeting is most and foremost to share or ask personal questions. I know this kind of feels like it's in the background because so far nobody has really dared to talk into the mic here, but we get a lot of questions and comments throughout the show. So Roger and I, we just keep talking until somebody raises their hand, which is part of the webinar software function here. And that indicates to us that you would like to share. So we don't have a panel guest today, so you're welcome to contribute, to share. Things are escalating right now, energies, and I've sent an energy report today, which kind of summarized a lot of the things that we talked about in the last couple of days here, how things are building and how some of the collective energies affect us. Part is also education here. So we're always trying to get a little bit of education in so that you feel empowered on your journey, that you feel like you know more about the dynamics, or you get inspired to look other things up or to become more aware. So the reason why we're doing this here is, for one, of course, we recognize the vulnerability in that time, in that holiday time at the end of the year, um, for everybody. But energetically sensitive people are very often, um, it feels a bit more intense, and it can lead to um, like really sort of destructive patterns. Not necessarily really intense dramas, but I can feel this in myself as well. There's this sort of autopilot in me that just wants to wrap up Christmas. And if things don't go my way, or if I feel like I'm not fully in control, I freak out. So I guess that's part of family life, and having little children being extremely excited about those gifts.
yeah, it's very important to stay in your center now. That's very
Yeah.
clear.
Does anybody want to share like how you have been experiencing today? Maybe, I mean, not all of you have been coming to every of the daily shows, and that's not needed. But have you noticed an escalation or like a release maybe, or Here in the States, it's not sort of the peak of Christmas yet. This won't be until tomorrow morning. So today was probably uh, the day where people didn't have their Christmas shopping done yet, where they experienced a lot of turmoil out there. So we're getting
So,
some.
how far ahead, how many days ahead do you notice your children being wound up and affecting things in the home, Yona? I don't have any of my own.
It depends on the age group. Um, the older children, of course, they sort of get the concept and they also understand that this whole Santa thing is just sort of a fictional thing. The younger kids, they can get really wrapped up. If we don't want them to get sucked into that, we need to keep them away from all these things a little bit because they can. I mean, as soon as they realize that there's sort of consumerism, gifts and stuff like that involved, and Santa, this like a mystical creature coming into the house at night and bringing things, they can get really wrapped up. And for the age group that we have here, well, we have several age groups, but the youngest one is not 3 yet, so he just realized the whole sort of gift wrapping and unwrapping type of thing. So he's very excited and completely out of sorts and not sleeping and not eating well. So yeah, so that adds to the stress then within the family because try to get a 2-year-old to understand.
Yes.
That's difficult. Yeah,
That
and so
sounds like something you can have a little control over in your own home to watch. You know, a lot of people use the Santa Claus coming in all as almost as a threat or a promise of happiness for their children. So,
yeah, I mean, if the kids are tied into the collective energies through watching TV, through watching commercials, there really isn't anything the parents could possibly do about that. The bombardment starts pretty much right after um, Halloween. There's almost like a consecutive holiday season here in the States, starting with Halloween and goes through Thanksgiving and then Christmas and then Valentine's Day. Everywhere, like in the supermarkets, everywhere. So this is a if we try to stay away from collective energies as parents, then we kind of have to isolate our kids because this is practically impossible to avoid those energies. So my approach to that as a parent is, education. You talk to your kids about it and you bring things into perspective. Of course, age group related, um, but it's very easy to for the kids to understand this as an externalization of happiness. The gifts and the stuff that they get. So it's in my view, it's very important that you make a family ritual out of it. That there's a good sort of ceremony with it, with a ceremonial context. Then the being together and the sharing and the eating and the playing board games or something like that, then becomes the center of the holiday and not so much the wrapping up, unwrapping the gifts.
more of a focus to the love of the family. You know, that's the important part of it, anyway.
Right, and I mean, I've always done this in a way that everyone sort of presents the gift that they have for the other family member personally, and kind of says something to that to make it a more personal giving and receiving,
Yes.
so that there's interaction, that it's not just like, you know, being in a in a store and just sort of getting things. So if we want this to not turn out to be a gettingness for our kids or for ourselves, then we need to create love around it. And that can be done with a lot of things, with ambience, with music, with um, and even if we have no family, or if we have nobody there on Christmas Eve or Christmas morning, I would recommend. I mean, as or, or for Hanukkah, I would recommend that you still do a little ceremony with yourself, where there's a moment of sort of tuning in, honoring, not necessarily, we don't have to believe in the sort of Christian background here, for us to take a moment for reflection. After all, this is sort of the feast of light, the light returning back into our world here, at least in the northern hemisphere. So there's a beauty in that, and we can do this with music, of course, decoration. There was one conversation that I had yesterday, and this was a very cool client, and she said, this year I decided to not go overboard, to not go stressed out about decorating my home for Christmas, or making a huge big dinner. There was a family involved there, and I really wanted to enjoy this holiday season. And I realized that I can't enjoy the holiday season, if I'm trying to be the perfect mom, the perfect sister, the perfect daughter, and hosting the perfect dinner and the perfect celebration for the family. I realize that this is not conducive for myself. I feel like I'm just presenting something that is not true to me. And so she sort of curbed down on all of that, and had very beautiful experiences, just in the pre-Christmas season now for her.
As I recall back, when I was living at home, all of my mother's time was spent working for the whole thing. And when she'd finally get time to sit down, she was exhausted and would doze off often.
Yeah.
Miss a
Yep.
lot of it.
Well, you guys had a lot of children in your home, right? I mean, there's a lot
Yes,
of cooking and cleaning and stuff involved.
there were 8 of us. And we were all crazy, too, about getting presents for a number of days, so we wore them down.
So, the collective energies right now, okay, besides the these traditions here in different countries, different religions, and so forth around this time of the year, um, they are escalating a little bit, not just because of the holidays. Okay, so there's other aspects that are coming in here. Some of them are normal at the end of the year. There's a lot of sort of financial volatility in the economy. There's here in the United States a new president-elect, so there's a lot of sort of transitions that come into our lives, and many people have resolutions for the new year. So there's this time here now between Christmas and New Year's has always been sort of for me, that is sort of a timeless time. It's a very weird energy in these days, where everybody seems to be a little off, and part of the reason is that there's this slight feeling of uncertainty, because it feels transitory. It's like kind of like the old year's already over, but the new year hasn't started yet. And we're beginning to reflect on the year, and we're beginning to look back, and maybe come up with some ideas or some intentions to make changes. And yesterday, those of you who were here yesterday, I gave you guys a homework, and that was what were the things that you learned in 2016? Did anybody come up with some things that he or she wants to share with us? What are the biggest things you learned? Okay.
It'd be really cool if anyone feels like
Yeah.
opening their mic and speaking, things can unfold and
Come in, come in.
really.
Brian, we have you online.
Yes. Hi, Yona. Hi, Roger.
Hi,
Hi,
Brian. How you
Roger.
doing?
I'm
Where,
good.
where,
I'm good.
Good.
where are you from? Where do you live?
Oh, I live in California, the United States.
Okay, so welcome, Brian. We got an audience here from all around the world, so I just wanted to make sure that people can place you somewhere.
Well, the big thing that I learned was definitely due to uh, taking the sacred self-healing course that you offered and starting with the Heart Warrior program last March. And the biggest thing for me has been, and I know I say this often, but don't beat yourself up. And so when I found or discovered uh, new aspects of myself in regards to whatever. I mean, I did a lot of inner child work. I've done work in other areas as well, not only through the transmissions you've offered, but on my own. And whenever I discovered something that maybe might have been unpleasant or a revelation or something like that, normally I would berate myself and be really hard on myself, like, well, how could you ever thought of that, or shame on you, or a critical inner voice goes nuts on you. And one of the things that was constantly reminding myself is not be hard on myself and don't beat myself up over it. Just know that yeah, just know that I'm, it's a work in progress, and I'm just discovering all these aspects about myself and trying not to be hard on myself. And out of that, I've learned how to be not so judgmental about other
Okay.
people and the way they are.
Wow. How did that affect your life? Like this kind of insight or this kind of change this year, like as compared to before?
Well, I always fancy myself being an open-minded kind of guy, but yet, as I discovered things about myself this past year, I realized there was a underlying level of myself of being really judgmental of others and their actions. So, and I've also been able to understand where they're coming from. And I also learned that I think basically I've been an empath my whole life, but I just never knew it. And
Uh-huh.
so I always felt like a outcast. My family always described me as the black sheep of the family, and my friends have always uh, mentioned that I'm like the mysterious one of the group, or kind of hard to figure out, or a bit of an enigma. And so I've always felt insecure about that at times.
Okay.
And it's only been in this past year, really, where I've been able to look at that and reclaim myself and actually look at it as being a strength as opposed to being a weakness or a social outcast, because I've been labeled as being a sensitive kind of guy or whatever. So
That's pretty cool.
I think it's really important what you brought up about especially inner judgment, beating yourself up. Yona talked about trying to keep the family happy and doing everything for them, and we're buying. A lot of us are buying gifts at this time of the year if we have any codependency within us or something like that. Where if we don't please somebody to the level that we expected, we can start attacking ourselves through here and bring ourselves down very easily.
Or
oh,
feel
very
attacked
easily,
by the other.
Yes.
especially with all the advertising and media stuff, and you should be doing this and you should be doing that to live up to a particular image. And you know we, you don't really have much support when you really think about it. There's not really much support in collective society as far as giving yourself some self-esteem. So
Oh, that's your own responsibility, eh? That's what.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
it's almost
So,
difficult to find yourself here. For me, Brian, what's just stuck out was that you said that you always kind of felt like on the outs, with your sensitivity. And Even though, it can give one a sense of specialness or something, but that this year was a year for you where you felt for the first time that that you weren't the black sheep. That to me is something big when that happens in a person's life, to feel that I'm trying to fit in here into something that isn't actually uh, compatible with me, and to be more confident about who I truly am. I mean, this is the work that we do here, day in, day out, 24/7, basically. And to hear that is a very beautiful compliment. Not yet for myself, but to hear you say this, that um, the inner work, and you know how this goes. This is all based on resonance. So there is a lot more to unlocking that in us than just one particular thing that we do, like what you've done this year. It's your whole life you've been working for that. So that's really huge, and
Well,
that's
it's really
That's
been
what I,
healing.
yes,
It's
taking
been very,
charge, like going to self-acceptance and eventually self-love. That's where you're taking the responsibility.
yes, it's been very healing to be part of a community such as transCODES, because you realize we're all here for the same purpose.
mm,
And you may not know exactly, the exact purpose on particular levels, but as you work with one another and you share in the forum and these webinars, you realize, we're all here for the same purpose and so what's very supportive for me is that there's no judgment
yeah.
amongst any of us with one another. So, you basically talk about anything, and all of us have been through it to a certain degree, one way or the other. So
And we can
that's
all
really
laugh
cool.
about the same jokes.
Yes,
Yeah, right. Yeah, we
and
find humor in some things that the collective society would think we're nuts laughing about, but it's really been, that's been very supportive, definitely.
That's
so has that brought in additional freedom in your life? You start to, well, you work in an environment of non-judgment, and you carry that to within yourself, and then you go out and interact with people. Have you noticed difference in how you view others and how
Oh,
you interact with
definitely,
them?
definitely. You know, I work in the showbiz industry out here in Southern California, and I've been doing it since 1978, and so I'm around judgmental people all the time, and a lot of not so many true selves, but a lot of false selves, so to speak, putting on fronts and like that. And with coworkers, I notice these days that though I recognize maybe some of the facades they're presenting, or some of the things they're going through, what I've been able to tap into, Roger, is I immediately go into my own heart for my own true selves, and that makes me realize that whether they want to acknowledge it or not, they have a true self, and really it's their true selves just as buried as mine has been throughout the years. And so as
Join
we're
the club, eh?
yeah, yeah, huh? And so as we're peeling away the layers of the onion, so to speak, it's the matter we all have our true selves. We're just so buried in all of collective society's crap that's been dealt with us over the years that we've been tricked into buying into. And so that whole self-discovery process has been really cool, and it does present you with a enormous amount of freedom to really come into your own and really express yourself and be yourself.
And let others be themselves as well.
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you
And
so
it's
much.
okay for others to be on their journey wherever they are, regardless if they think they're on a journey or not. Uh, that's okay. Whereas before, I think I was judging people about that,
Mm.
judging like, oh, how could you think this way, or how could you act like this, or why are you this way and like that? I'm not questioning that so much anymore. I'm not
Yeah, and
questioning
I'm
that at
also
all.
hearing you say that you've gained more compassion, not just
Definitely.
for
Yeah.
yourself, also for others. That's a really cool statement.
And I think
Thank
that's when I realized that, like I said, I thought I was always open-minded, but I realized that there's a whole different definition of being open-minded, so to
you.
speak.
You
Okay.
and I have very similar false selves. About the
So
same.
now we're talking. Okay, so you thought you were open-minded, Brian. You can stay on the line if you want. Nobody else wants to share right now. Um, and open-minded is really the key word here for us today, because today um, we wanted to talk about how to observe sort of energy draining things as they go on, as they happen. And we're going to talk a little bit about our mind today and the perception. And I just wanted to throw something in here before we get to someone else who wants to share about heightened perception. What makes the awakening of our higher perception so scary is not just the fact that we're beginning to see our inner reality, but we don't know how to handle being real with ourselves. That is very much what you just reported, Brian. Like being more compassionate with yourself and allowing yourselves to be real. That is a massive step in a person's journey. Um, we call this journey, the self-healing journey, um, only to avoid certain lingos like spiritual journey. It is a spiritual journey, without a doubt. But for most of us, spirituality is somehow connected with religion. And it's important to point out that even though we may all have certain religious backgrounds, that this journey that we are talking about here is independent of any kind of religion or ethnic background. It is something that we would probably call the evolution of our consciousness. And so it always begins with our heightened perception. Um, Adi, I'm going to turn the microphone on here. Hang on. There you go. Hi, Adi. We can hear you.
Hi. Hi, how you doing?
Hi, Annie. How are you?
Where,
Hi,
where are
Roger.
you calling from?
London.
Welcome, London. This is the middle of the night for you, man.
Yeah.
So, did you guys celebrate anything tonight or not yet?
No, no, yeah. I was just waiting to get into online to talk to you guys.
Okay,
I've missed you guys for 3 days, man.
wonderful. So, how have you been
Uh,
doing, Ade?
it's been a strange one for me, to be honest. This year is a lot of learning, emotional, learning how to deal with the family
Mm.
and accepting what they do. Because normally I focus on other people, don't focus on myself. So focusing on myself, I see there's a lot of things I need to do for myself.
Okay, so did you find out certain things that, like, say, you've been neglecting over the years, or things that,
A lot of things, a lot of things. I realized I get angry, I was fed up. It
hmm.
was quite a strange journey.
It's very
So,
cool that you're recognizing that.
Yeah, I'm recognizing it, yeah, because and I see things I do, how it affects the family. I see things that I was more looking at them rather than looking at myself. Because I was
uh-huh,
trying to help them out.
yep. I have been there.
That's and that happens a lot in the families. If we look, you put blame around and get angry, and oftentimes there's very simple shifts that we need to do on our own, or shifting our perspective or whatever, going back to ourselves can change a lot of those things very quickly. And
It's tricky
peace.
when you have a family and you kind of try to be there for them.
Hmm.
Um, and it can also be very distractive, especially with kids involved. You know, it can keep you busy for like 20 years, you know. And of course,
Yeah,
we think
it,
we have good intention and we do good, and we end up blaming our family for us not being able to what we wanted to do or what we
yeah,
thought
you're
we.
right. Yeah.
I have to say, it amazes me to watch people with families. I've never had my own. I was part of a large one. Maybe that's the reason why. Um, but the strength and uh, dedication that it takes to raise a family is just incredible to me.
Yeah, yeah, and it's very hard to let go sometimes.
Yes, there's many good lessons in it, I'm sure, but
It
much joy also, right?
Yeah,
it
yeah, it was fun in the beginning, but when it goes wrong, problems.
having a family can be an accelerator for our journey because we get exposed to so many different aspects, and we get bombarded so much that if we can do this consciously, it can be a cool sort of addition to our journey. It can also be a distraction, or if we, don't do it consciously, then it can be something that we perceive as a burden. So, having children, having a family, can have many different meanings to us. But I'm interested, Ade, in how you just said that, because obviously there was a change this year for you in the way you saw things about yourself and the family. What would you say was sort of the biggest theme this year? Like, what was new this year as compared to all the other years?
Um, Not to get angry, to let go and let them live their own life, and if they have something, they could come talk to me rather than me being overprotective and uh, and
We're kind of
looking at my own,
seeing your own part in certain things, like that you.
yeah, yeah, pain, things I'm going through in my own life, things I was hiding.
As
Hiding.
I'm going to say, it sounds like you should see yourself in a different role now than what you were before.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm trying to be their friend rather than keep acting like an overprotective dad.
Cool.
Yeah. And being an overprotective dad in this society is not necessarily a bad thing. But from an energetic point of view, we know that this can be a trap and that there can be, sort of resentments that we build, unconscious patterns that can come with that. And so having some of these realizations is actually really cool. Now, this year, though, for our entire collective, was very much about completion, like the completion of an old cycle. All right, and there was a lot of new truths that came forward this year on all levels, like on a political level, on a collective, social level, and so forth, and also in our families. So I find that interesting that you say that you found out a lot of things that you were hiding, or maybe even your family members. There's a lot of things here in my family also that came into the light this year that was sort of hidden in the background, and this year it was sort of it made itself priority. There were some things that made itself so important that they had to be resolved or clarified, not necessarily yet with solutions, like as to how to really do it better or how to um, have a healthier pattern there. But definitely, this year was about bringing all these hidden things forward. And that wasn't always fun.
Yeah,
No,
that's
no.
sort of bringing us closer to our own truth, allowing that to happen.
Yeah.
And it didn't necessarily, I mean, I don't have a family, and it happened for me also. I went through the same processes, and some of it's still ongoing now.
I'm the same with Roger. I'm in the same boat. I don't have a family myself, but this year was also big on allowing. Allowing was a big theme in my life as well.
And with that, of course, always comes trusting too, right? Because I mean, we sort of have to trust in ourselves to be able to handle it, and trust in, like, when other people are involved, we have to trust that we can get through this together. That there's not this sort of black and white, oh my God, he's going to leave me if I say this or if I do this, but that there is a sort of a general consensus that if we want to move forward, we have to address a few things. So it was a little bit felt like cleanup this year here, and those of us who have families, um, I can't speak for everybody, of course. I can only speak for myself and all the clients that I work with, but there was a lot of that going on in people's lives this year. A lot of sort of almost forced clarification.
Yes,
uh,
trust has been a main theme for me for at least a couple months now, and having to go through fears, um, just going through them, it takes full trust to, you know, to give you the, I guess, strength or whatever to go forward.
just, yeah, the courage.
The courage, yes, that's the word.
I
Yeah,
felt.
trust is
Can
such
I?
an unknown factor too. I mean, it's really, along with allowing and letting go, it's hard to put any concrete whatever on trust, and so you're really having to go into the space of allowing and letting go to accept that.
Ari, I think you wanted to add something too.
Yeah, I want to ask the question really. If you've done things that you say is affecting your kids,
Mhm.
do you look at them or just focus? You need to focus more on yourself to make it right to help them out. Would that be the right way to go?
To help them out.
Yeah,
Well, if I know that I've done something wrong, or that I've done something maybe.
I've seen things I've done through the years that might have affected them through their behaviors, their character.
Right.
You,
I think I understand you, Ari. This is a good question. See, as a parent, of course, it depends on the age group, but when our kids are old enough to understand concepts and to understand, things like mistakes and so forth, I think as a parent, it's very important to admit to the mistakes that we make, even if it's things the kids don't understand. Like, for instance, a couple of years back, I said to my kids, guys, I'm not going to clean your bathroom anymore. I've had it, you know, because I got mad every time I was cleaning the bathroom because they really didn't care. And because I've always done it, I realized I've enabled that. And along with that, I realized that there's a lot of behaviors, sort of lazy behaviors, that I had enabled with my kids. And I came to them and I said, I'm not mad or anything. I just want you to understand that there are some things that I'm seeing now that I did wrong. And not wrong as in like beating myself up, but I see that they caused certain patterns or certain behaviors, or enabled certain behaviors in you that are not beneficial for you. They're not good, and I'm correcting this now. And then I mean, this is not the same example as you were hinting at, Ari, but if it's something like, say, where I made a mistake where they had to suffer consequences, say, then I will definitely go there with them and help them to make good. It depends, of course, on the subject, but um, part of being a good parent, in my view, especially when you are energetically sensitive, and most of our kids are also energetically sensitive. That's in the nature of it. Is to own yourself, to own your mistakes, to own your good things too, and to live up to your own virtues. And if I admit to my children that I made a mistake and I help them through some of the consequences maybe that they had to experience, I'm teaching them a very important life skill, and that is to be responsible and to be in charge of myself, even if it means that my ego takes a hit. Because, of course, as parents, we want to be all perfect and everything. But presenting sort of that false self, that false image of us that we're perfect, is the very thing that creates a lot of stress for our kids later. If they experience their parents as always right, always perfect, always on time, always on top of everything, it becomes very, very difficult for them to deal with their own failures. And so what they can learn from us when we stand up for our mistakes and live through the consequences with them is that it's not the end of the world. It's that it's okay. And Brian, you mentioned, beating yourself up so badly as one of your patterns that you discovered in yourself, right? That's one of those long-term effects of our parents always sort of being on top of things. It's
I want to mention too the guilt. You're talking about guilt here, actually, in this situation, where with a focus of what what drains our energy. Guilt is a big one.
yes,
So it's important to come to some resolution on that, one way or the other.
and so is hiding.
Yes.
So one of the biggest issues, and not just as a parent, but in any situation in our life with our loved ones or even a work situation, is that whenever we feel like there's something about us that we can't fully accept, we begin to project a different version of us. We begin to project something that is more perfect or less valuable or doesn't make any mistakes. And so we're imposing a sort of an energy on top of something. We're trying to sustain something, and even hiding, which is a slightly more intense version of that, are extreme energy drainers for us. It means that we constantly have to keep something up. We have to constantly pump energy into that. And
And
so,
hold back our strong desires we have for expression. That's what you're basically talking about with that. I get, through the years, I've been working
yeah,
on it, for several years, but that used to be one of my major blocks, was the buildup of unexpressed emotions and things.
right. And in that context, then when things come out, when they, you know, whether they've been triggered by outer things or whether they have, of course, more power when we address it directly and say, hey, there's things that I have been pretending or things, where I've been lying or whatever, it has more power than when we're found out. But when we allow things to come out, when we allow truth to emerge, okay, then we usually experience a very deep release and a relief too, because here we don't really have to invest parts of our energy anymore to cover anything up. And so, in general, even if the truth is sometimes hurtful in the beginning, because if we look back, of course, then that requires us to set some things right and maybe and acknowledge that we have to work on trust again. Like this happens quite often when we admit to something, depending on what it is. But it of course makes the other person, at first it makes the other person feel like, well, what have you been telling me then all these years? So going in the past, that can be a little painful. But all that really means is that with truth, we're actually creating a clean slate. And from here, all we really need to do is accept that we have to work on trust a little bit and we build that. But if we take this as an inner prompting to live up to our own truth and to to follow these virtues that come with that, then we can create a whole new level of relationship, be it with our kids or our spouses or parents or um, loved ones or even co-workers. So allowing things to come forward, or letting go of things. Someone here commented big time, I had to let go of family altogether, and I'm really happy, where I would normally be depressed. That's Julianne, that's a really good comment, because sometimes going into our truths means to let go of an illusion, say, to let go of an idea, letting go of the idea that we have a happy family, for instance, or that we have an idea of how family is supposed to be like. And instead of going into resistance when it doesn't work out that way, we sometimes just have to let go of it. We just have to let go of the idea. And when we let go of an idea, and this is where the mind comes in, as I said earlier, we're going to be talking a little bit about the mind in regards to energy draining energies. When we let go of an idea, which, if you think about it, is really just, well, it's a brain fart, really. Okay. But if we make our entire life, our entire energy depend on it, well, then there can be quite a little bit of reaction to it. And in energy work, we talk about attachments. So an attachment is something where we hang on to the idea, or where we hang on to a person, or we hang on to a concept, or a relationship, or a habit, or even items that somehow represent something to us more than it actually is. And in many cases, that can go all the way to externalizing our power. There's many people out there who feel like that they're nothing if they are not in a relationship, or that they are nothing if they don't have a certain amount of money on their account, or they're nothing if they don't have a happy family. So these are all ideas, and they are linked to our mind. And when a person makes their entire energy depend on a mental attachment, which we would call that in energy work as such, the idea of this or that, then literally their energy system is bound to their ego, is bound to contractive states, because it constantly has to be fed, it constantly has to be sustained. And it so happens here, this is a variation of the chart that we looked at yesterday. It so happens that contractive states are bound to what we call the ego. And the ego, not to be mistaken with the psychological ego. We do recognize that the ego's function is to keep us alive, to help us to get through things. It is something that helps us to individuate at an early stage of our development. But it is also the very part of us that is attached to our body, that is attached to this incarnation, this lifetime here, this life. Okay? And so for most of us, we talked about lower energetic states, or slower vibrational states yesterday. For most of us, being caught in any of these lower vibrational states here equals to be caught in our ego, to be attached to our ego. And the ego uses the mind and the body as allies. Those are the two allies of our ego. The emotions then are used to sort of fortify our mental attachments. Like a fear, for instance, it can be a mental attachment, and so can anger be a mental attachment. And if you really sort of honest with yourself, um, and this is really what we're going to do here today, is if you really observe yourself, like when you're angry, there's a physical reaction to anger, of course, but past that physical reaction, there is a thought process going on. There's a mental process going on that sort of feeds the anger. And the part of us that feeds whatever the state is, anger, fear, pain, guilt, control, judgment, that's what we call the ego. So while the ego is there to help us to survive and to identify things that could be potentially threatening to us, over the years, it can also be responsible for really keeping us in these constant states of defensiveness. All right. So when we talk about the things that we talked about earlier, allowing truth to come forward, trust, and so forth, letting go. All right, we are literally crossing the threshold of our ego here. We are literally doing something that is, well, potentially changing our lives, because we are moving into an energy field that is now expansive, that is more aligned to our true self. And what that does, or what that means, better say, is that when we are in a higher or faster vibrational state that is aligned to our true self, then we don't have to feed it. It doesn't really take any energy to keep that up. And in fact, there is a self-propelled power behind us becoming more true to ourselves, that we can observe, spontaneous manifestations of things. We can observe things becoming less struggle, that things are going into sort of like more of a flow, and less sort of inner turmoil, inner conflict. Roger, you called this inner peace yesterday. So inner peace is something that develops in us when we are aligned to our true self, and that can only happen if we cross this threshold here of truth. Yes, this year I think I'm reading a comment here. This year I think I learned the saying to do as I say and don't do as I say is very contradictory, as my kids looked at what I did and unfortunately followed. I did a lot of lying and hiding. Yeah. So, and that is a huge, that's a huge insight, especially with children. Children always look at what we do. They don't care what we say. But if we say one thing and do another thing, then of course we need to be prepared that our kids are going to have very similar inner conflicts than we do. So to do as we say is a very important virtue. And even if that sometimes means that we have to say, that we need to say less, sometimes it's better to not say anything if we're not 100% sure that we can live up to it. That's also one of those metaphysical truths that come to us over time, because there is a power in doing what we say. There's a power in our word. And
it's interesting. I just had a thought about how a lot of nature learns by example. Animals and birds and all, they watch actions just like children.
Yeah, it's a bit more complex though. I mean, the main difference between humans and animals, even the very highly developed mammals, is that we have a consciousness. And some of the really high developed mammals have that too. But and the consciousness allows us to observe all our conditioned and instinctual behaviors. Whereas animals, um, they learn through instinct, which is, sort of anchored in their genetic code, and they learn through conditioning, which means, they do this, and every time they do this, something positive or something negative happens, and that's conditioning, and that's really what the majority of learned behavior in animals is ruled by. Humans have the ability to observe their own behavior and their own thinking. There is, so to speak, another level there, and we can override our conditioning. We can override our instincts. So our instincts, they are very much linked here to these lower vibrational states, like killing something if it tries to kill us, or, like to go into attack or to go into hiding or into a flight when something feels threatening. But our consciousness, and the consciousness is something that begins to really emerge here in these faster vibrational states, allows us to observe and allows us to stop the hardwired behaviors that we have. And here we're now getting to the really important, or the really part of what we wanted to talk about today, namely observing life draining or energy draining situations. What we experience as challenging is every time, basically, when we run out of energy. That's a challenge for us, because then all the things that we are projecting, all the stuff that how we want other people to see us and so forth, they kind of fall apart. We can't do that anymore. We don't have enough energy to do that. And then in interaction with other people, of course, they're doing the same thing. And if they're stronger in their projection, then it's sort of a battle of resonances here occurs within us. And that's then what we perceive as energy draining. So every time when two people come together and their energies compete, we have an energy draining situation for either one of them, sometimes even for both of them at the same time. When two people come together who are aligned to their true selves, there is no competition going on between their energies. They're not trying to project anything on, and this is what happens when we align ourselves to truth. We don't really need to do that anymore. So we're kind of like more laid back, and we don't really have to pretend. And when two people who are both aligned to their true selves come together, of course, there's always, when relationship and so forth, we have to deal with the past. But the general energetic view is that both are entering into a state of win-win, which means we feel more inspired, we feel empowered, we feel stronger when talking to this person or just thinking of that person. And the same, of course, applies to situations, occasions, places. There's a lot of people right now who go to visit family, and just thinking of going there, already makes them exhausted. All right, so that's a typical sign that our energy is somehow in conflict or competition there. And for the most part, not to diminish any of this or to be judgmental here, but for the most part, it's because there's something in us that we're trying to hold up. There's some kind of projection, and even if it's just us trying to be good, us trying to whatever, be a good daughter or be a good mom, or whatever the idea, whatever the mental attachment is. All right, that is then what drains us. So coming to the solution part here, because we're getting to the end of the show, and um, it's important here to, to feel out what it is that we can do in this situation. Because overall, our objective is to be able to become aware of these things, these energy draining things, not just in specific situations, really throughout our daily lives, every day, which can include work situations and so forth. And what we can do, what can we do to um, neutralize this inner conflict? What can we do to be more in charge of our energy and not let it get drained, say, by other people or by places or even just through our own mental or emotional looping? What do you guys think? What we can do?
Well, I know one trick I've used for myself. I started using it in a work situation when interacting with coworkers, and if they're in the anger or attack mode themselves, or controlling modes or whatever, one thing I did was I visualized myself looking at all the players, including myself, in the third person, and that
Uh-huh.
seems to take that seems to neutralize or remove the emotional charge that I may have, that my ego may have, and
Oh.
just puts me in a state of just observing whatever they're going through. And I find that I'm not reacting whatever emotions they're emoting towards me. And so I found that really helps a lot. Just
How did you?
initially, right off the bat, you know.
How do you do this, like practically?
Well, if someone's complaining about whatever, and they may not even be complaining to me, maybe they're complaining about someone else, but they're venting to me. I I really do. I visualize myself up in the corner of the ceiling in the room, looking down amongst all of us, and that takes me out of it. Sort of that really neutralizes everything. And then out of that, I'm able to recall however I want to react. I want to react from my heart, not from my mind.
So what you're saying is, or what I hear you saying is that what really helped you to neutralize some of that or to deal better with these kind of situations is to move into that observer mode, like
Yes.
really sort of stepping back. How do you prevent yourselves from reacting, like getting angry or getting all?
Well, because I'm spending, what energy if I'm expending any energy, it's visualizing myself doing that. And so I'm busy, I'm in the moment doing that. It's as if I'm in the third person, I'm reading a book about what's going on right now.
Uh, so you're detaching from the situation a bit, and you're keeping your mind more or your emotions, your mind and your emotion more or less busy with the discipline of looking at it from a more detached position. Is that kind of like how you do that?
Yes, that's what that's what prevents me from being coming from a reactionary mode right off the bat and feeling like I need to defend myself or anything like that. I find that
Right.
I don't feel like I have to defend myself or defend any position or agree with anyone on anything necessarily. I'm just observing.
Interesting. We have a question here being sent in from the audience. If you make money from an illusion, does that throw all the things away? Do you throw all things away? Uh, this is a very cool question because a lot of us make compromises uh, that allow us to pay our bills or to accomplish things in our life that we think we need. But especially, of course, if uh, we have to do something that we deep down don't really want to do. I think that's what you meant with an illusion. And here, it's important to understand that when any of our um, ways of making money, when they're based on lower vibrational states, and this is general and probably requires a little more explanation in a later show. But when we make compromises that are based on lower vibratory energies, then these things typically don't have a lot of substance. It's either that they create constant struggle, of course, especially if they require us to lie or to pretend, they create constant energy drainage. And over time, and this is something we learn here when we really sort of hone in on letting go of the things that are no longer needed. Um, when we let go of things that are not true to us anymore. So we've done a job that we kind of hated, and it's been draining the life out of us, and we feel really stuck there. It requires a little bit of courage to let go. But what happens is that as soon as our energy begins to align to higher vibrational states through our decision to let go, we begin to attract a whole new opportunities into our lives. And more often than not, as soon as we close that one door to, like, say, our old life that was based on untruth, a new door opens. A much better solution. A solution that is based on my now higher vibrational field. And here again, we get to that place where what Roger said earlier, what Adi said earlier, what Brian said earlier, we will have to trust. Every time we let go, we have to access our inner trust that we can make it. And when you develop good practice in that, just to give you a heads up here, then that becomes your second nature.
And another large energy drain, the fear of something we know we need to do.
When we let go of that drainage, we have so much more energy all of a sudden that can go into other ways, into other levels, into creativity, into abundance. We come up with new ideas all of a sudden. Or new people come into our lives and offer a new job. So the trust that we need here is the trust that when we are true to ourselves, we can come up with better solutions. Those are the kinds that we call higher vibrational solutions. And they last as opposed to untrue solutions or lower vibrational solutions, because they have to be fed. They have to somehow be sustained energetically. And so letting go of an unwanted job or a dysfunctional relationship or a destructive habit like substance abuse, while it's a bit difficult at first because of the trust that is needed, it always, always leads to the unfolding of better solutions in the end. How many people say this, that getting divorced was tough, at the time, but in the end it allowed for all new kinds of things to happen. Not necessarily just new relationships, like, going through a crisis by following the truth in our heart can be a super transformative event in our life. And out of that can come things that our ego could have never made up. That's why it's important here to let go, because our ego cannot come up with a solution. We cannot find a higher vibratory solution in a lower vibratory state. Number one mistake, trying to find a low vibratory solution for a high vibratory problem. So that's why letting go, when we realize that something is not true to us anymore, and when we can withstand the temptation to beat ourselves up over our past. See, the thing with truth is that we cannot really see truth before we're in truth. And so there's no point really to beat ourselves up over it. What the true extent is of our decisions or our choices based on fear or based on anger or based on specialness, we cannot see that until we moved out of that illusion. And then we are free. Then we are free to come up with new solutions. And those solutions are now based on an entirely different energy, which means they will have an entirely different quality that they can provide to us.
It's interesting to me, Yona. It seems that about 99% of the fears that I've gone through, the result was nothing like what my ego painted. It's like, wow, I walk through a fear and it's like, this is amazing. And it's something I never could have expected. I did it again today. And every one I walk through, I can imagine the worst things going to happen, and it never happens. Why do we consistently or continue to paint such terrible projections, such pictures, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Part
of that is anchored in our nervous system. So
yeah.
It's not all, just sort of our fault, really. It is if at all, it is a lack of us being aware. But that's something we can't really beat ourselves up for. That can only be experienced once we really let go.
Right.
And so for any type of change, the letting go is what needs to be targeted. The letting go, and of course the alignment to truth. Like, be it truthful to me and to others.
Yeah.
And that
courage to stand with the feeling.
Yes. The power of that is much more than the ego can fathom. And so the ego will go against it. It will battle us when it's about letting go. Like, say, letting go of a job that pays the bills. Well, what am I going to do? I can't pay the rent next month. Oh, well. Then you're just going to have to trust that within the next 3 weeks or so, you're going to come up with a better solution, and you will. If that's your alignment, you will. If you battle with your ego, and if you try to maintain or keep up the illusion, if you continue the struggle, energetic struggle and drainage, no, you won't come up with a better solution. And you will most likely either find a solution that's the same, just a different coloration, or no solution at all. And I know this all sounds very conceptual, but those are all lived and very practical things to do. So that's why we always educate people on how the energetic states and the vibrations affect our emotions, how they affect our scope and our perception. So next time we're going to be talking a bit more about the perceptional part. How does our perception change when we change our energy? As for today, and we didn't get to answer Mariana's question, which we will have to address tomorrow as well, we've already come to the end, and we're already over time again, so I have to apologize, especially tonight on Christmas Eve. So what we want to do now for the next couple of minutes, if you will, is to do the channeling of energies that are to come. And we've started channeling the energies of every month of the next year with our first session. So this is our fourth session. So today we're going to be we're going to be channeling Um,
Uh-oh.
oh yeah. um, April,
April.
April energies. All right, and even though most of you are not clairvoyants and are not energy workers, or you don't have to have any particular skill. If you are energetically sensitive, you have the ability to tap into your precognition. And very often, this tapping into your precognition is not so much a process as most think of, like trying to focus on something. On the contrary, it's actually the other way around. It's letting go of all overlay that allows us to tap in to non-local information. And so the technique, in quotation marks, that I've been teaching you here throughout these webinars is a very simple heart breathing technique, a very simple in and exhale with a visualization that when we inhale, that we pull all excess mental, all excess emotional energies into our heart center, right at the center of our chest, like a vacuum cleaner. And hold this there for a little bit, because there's an inversion process and an energetic inversion process that happens there. And then as we exhale, we breathe out all these excess, not needed anymore energies sideways, not forward as our breath would want to go, but sideways. So this is it's a combination of breathing and visualizing, not very mystical at all, but very effective. So what I would like to ask you now is to take a moment to just sort of hone in to the center, to your center, the center of your center, the heart center, which is sort of, yeah, at the center of your chest, like slightly above your sternum. And to just locate that. And as you begin to breathe in, to consciously breathe in, visualize pulling all these energies that are in your lower torso up into your heart, and all these energies that are in your upper torso, arms, and above your head into that center at the same time. Suck it in. And then you hold it there for a moment, and then you breathe out sideways. Release everything that is not needed anymore. So I'm gonna sort of model this for you here. Breathe in, pulling all excess energies into your heart center. Hold it. And breathe out. For as long as you can. It's an energetic clearing process. So the longer you can exhale, the deeper the clearing goes. And again, breathe in. Hold it. And breathe out. Breathe in. Hold it. And breathe out. All right. I can start feeling things. Okay, seems like everybody's in a good state now. So spontaneously now, no thinking. If the thought takes you more than 3 seconds, you're already in your mind. What does April feel like to you? April 2017.
I saw an owl.
Now, okay.
Uh-huh.
I'm transcoding life here, so I'll take notes and then sort of summarize it all together. Oh, I saw a lot of yellows. Owl usually stands for wisdom, but also for sort of hidden energies coming in. It can also be knowing. So it's more like an uncovering of things, like suddenly knowing something. It's kind of quiet here today.
I'll mention raspberries, two of them on a vine.
Raspberries?
No feeling with them, yes. Raspberries.
Okay. Somebody else is saying it's a time to be careful to avoid danger. Um, I agree with you. I'm actually seeing things. Um, so there are some things that are going to happen in April. Um, I'm seeing the buildings collapsing, maybe due to an earthquake or due to some other things that can happen. Battle. Yeah, somebody's seeing a battle. So this is yeah, this is difficult when you channel energies and you begin to see these kind of and not to say apocalyptic, but you see stuff that is not really nice, and that looks like a bit of a challenge. So I guess we have our challenging of April here. Yes, armor. So okay, so without going too deep into the fear of that, because that's uh, something also that we need to learn when we tap into a precognition, that we don't allow our mind to take off with it and to go into fear and to create scenarios. Okay, so when we get this impulse that there are things in April, for instance, that may be a bit challenging, it's very important to discipline ourselves to not go into fantasy or to not go into what this could mean for me. Someone is saying, yeah, the feminine energies feel heavy. So I would like to leave it here at that. I think just by the selection here of 10, 15 different impressions of April are showing things that there is going to be some challenges. Now, we are here, we come here together from all over the world. So, of course, like say an earthquake happens, that doesn't happen all over the world. It happens in certain areas. So sometimes we tap into things that are just sort of going like a ripple through the collective. Okay, so this is basically what precognition is. We're tapping into something that is sort of creating an energetic signature in the collective. And very often those can be isolated events, and yet it feels like the entire month is going to be dominated by that. We don't know that yet, but I think intuitively here we've picked up um, on things. There's some maybe conflict or some natural catastrophe coming forward, maybe accompanied with having to be very careful, having to be a bit more conscious about where we're at, avoiding danger, and trusting in our knowing that, oh, Roger, Brian, and that is for me is the biggest message here, to really trust in our inner knowing. And one of the positive or the positive side effects of being aligned to our inner truth is also that our inner guidance becomes much stronger, which means that we can begin to really trust that we will be at the right time, at the right place, that we'll say the right thing when needed. And so that's something that we will most likely need. Yes, the wisdom in the dark. So that sort of hidden knowledge within us that is coming forward, inner guidance. So definitely, I would say April will be part of that will be the trust in our inner guidance. And as I said earlier, in a week I'm going to do a forecast for 2017, and I'm going to use all your guys' predictions and weave them in. And when you get to read the forecast and know that this is your contribution, so this will be very exciting, and it's an experiment. I've never done this before, but I think it's working really well, and you'll be very, very surprised. Of course, we should then probably come together in a year from now and look at the accuracy of our predictions, because that's a very important part of channeling or tapping into our precognition, is to look at the results. That's very important. All right, everybody. Once more, thank you very much for being here on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day for some of you. You guys are a wonderful audience. Brian, Audie, I can't even thank you enough for breaking the ice here and speaking into the microphone. It's been wonderful listening to your sharing, and
Yes.
all you guys' comments and everything. Awesome.
I'd like to mention again, Yona, if anyone has a difficult time getting through the holidays, you can email me at roger@transcodes.com, and we can hook up and chat or whatever.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Roger, for offering that. And if you haven't yet, please read the energy report, the energy update for this week. Okay, thank you so much for being here. Yes, thank you. All comments, we're getting lots of thank yous and so forth. And tomorrow we're going to be talking about perception, but we're also going to be talking about how we can clear energies on a regular basis. And we also have Marina's question. Sorry for mispronouncing your name. About how to best balance masculine and feminine energies for tomorrow on Christmas Day here in the United States. You guys have been a fantastic audience. Thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow.
Thank you, everyone.